Question, is the government screwing us? Stick around and find out. Question then, is the government screwing us?
I mean, there's a lot to uncover with that. I think fundamentally, yes, obviously. Now, do you know what's a real shame in this country now, where we used to have the great British Empire, and we were a country where, look, anything was possible, and no country doesn't have their dark sides. And, you know, there's obviously a lot of, you know, our
History to learn from.
There's a lot of our history that, you know, we would look back on and obviously cringe and be sort of quite ashamed of in a modern day. But that is just the reality of life. You know, things that happened 100 years ago, 200 years ago, you know, we'd hope that we've evolved as a civilization to look back on now and know that we were probably wrong for doing that at the time. But, you know, 2,000 years ago, we were running around with swords trying to stab each other. So, you know, that's just the nature of the beast at the time. Now, looking at a modern day, I think overall, look, the answer is yes. The government, whether it's the last 15, 14 years of the Conservative government, the now new Labour government, I think there is no hope. I think we've hit a point now where nobody seems to be able to rally enough people in our country now to, let's say, a point of agreement where we don't need to be able to agree on everything, but there needs to be an overall understanding that actually, and we have the best people's interests at heart, and yes, we have to make some sacrifices, but those sacrifices are for the greater good, and it's not just we're going to make cuts or we're going to affect this type of person or we're going to affect these areas. It's got to be a collective. We've got to bring society back and we've got to bring that community back.
Yeah, I think the thing is, government is extremely good at doing certain things. You know, like if it was left to, you know, private companies to fix the roads, you know, they'd never get fixed because no one's ever going to pay to get a road pothole fixed because who you're invoicing for that? You know, street lights, you can't pay a company to rent a street light for the night. Do you know what I mean? If you know you're driving home. So there's certain things that the government are very good at.
I'd completely disagree. See,
can try. Go on, then bring it up.
But let's be honest. I think the problem with the government in those circumstances is the fact that they aren't business focused. And because they're not business focused, they get bent over backwards on cost. They get destroyed when it comes to investments in actual things like pothole repair, streetlight repair, maintenance, general maintenance, because there's so much corruption going on that, look, it's clear as day for anyone to see that projects like that, they take so long to complete and they cost so much money because there's backhanded shady deals going on all the time because there's no transparency in the actual spend that's taking place. Whereas every company in the country has got to abide by HMRC's tax laws, which involves transparent accounts, which involves submitting tax returns, which involves sharing profits. Now, if the government acted in the same way that every other business it tells to act, the country would be in a much better place because that transparency would lead people to be actually seeing what they're spending their money on. And just as like you would in a business when you're bidding on a contract to, let's say, repair a road, you would say, well, I can do it for £1,000. And then you look at the government spend and go, 10 grand. How have you spent 10 grand on repairing a pothole? And because there's no competition, the government just awards contracts to whoever wants to, you know, pay them the most behind the counter. That's what's happening. And they're spending far too much.
Yeah, so that element of it 100, but I just mean you
So you were wrong.
No, I was right. But I mean, you couldn't get a private company whose primary profit drive was to profit off the light that, you know, street lights give, like, because, you know, you can't, if I wanted to walk alone, you know, at night or something and there was a load of street lights, I'd need to, if I wanted to use those lights, I'd have to pay for them. Otherwise, unless they're up for free. Do you know what I mean?
My issue really is...
So I'm saying that the government have got services that they're good, that only governments can do with taxes. But it's what I'm saying is it's too bloated at the minute, and they've jumped into different things and award contracts, like you're saying, like in shady ways to the best mates.
Yeah, I agree with the point, but I just think you've picked two bad examples.
Well, it's everyone else will understand, I'm sure.
I don't think so. Look, I think there's the whole thing with businesses and the business world is monopolies aren't allowed to exist. And unfortunately, what's happening is the government is allowing these monopolies to take place because they're directly benefiting from them. The Conservative government are terrible for this, and we all know that. We've been sort of, I don't want to say involved personally, but we've seen it happen with our own eyes, with people taking contract investment from people, giving each other cost prices and a bit of a wink and sort of saying, if you can meet this price, we'll give it to you. And that's where, unfortunately, look, that's always going to happen in the world. Corruption's always going to take place. But again, I've just seen Elon Musk, who's just created the DOGE, which is the Department of Government Efficiency. I mean, the idea behind it is fantastic. And he was addressing some questions to critics where people think that he's now going to be able to take advantage of the system himself to benefit his companies, which, look, he might be able to. But he out and out said that the reason he won't be able to, he's going to try and limit that, is because he is going to offer complete transparency. And in a world where at the minute, certainly in the UK, where there is no transparency, nobody knows where the money's going, they try and say that they're looking after people and they're spending money on this, sending it to Ukraine. But just as the Doge has now gone in and found, they've spent, the maddest one that I saw, they spent $50 million on a shipment of condoms to go to Kenya. And I'm just thinking to myself, look, we all need to practice safe sex, but $50 million worth of condoms is a bit extreme, isn't it?
Yeah, have you seen... the thing, this is where we're getting to, and I agree that 100% there needs to be a cut down of government spending because governments don't generate profits. Governments take the profits of company and spend it. So, without any companies to give the government the money, they're not going to be able to do anything. So finding ways of making the savings is critical. And one of the maddest ones I saw that came out, again, not that long ago, I think it was only the other day, was the mine. And I don't know if you've heard about the mine, but essentially with the government workers, obviously they'll retire at some point. So when they retire, when Elon Musk has gone in, he said, oh, right, okay, so we're, retirement records, how many people we got here? And he said, oh, well, with the retirements, we can actually only retire 10,000 staff, per month. And he's kind of gone, what? What? There'll be more than 10,000 people that retire sometimes, surely?
Yeah,
and
per year it was.
Yeah, was it per year? So he's kind of going, well, how's that work? What do you mean? And he's gone, well, we've got to, we write it on paperwork, so we all have to hand write it all down. He's gone, what? You write people's retirements on paper? Because what do you do with the paper? So, well, we have to box it all up, put it in a file, send it with FedEx, send it to the Rocky Mountains or wherever it was. And it gets sent to a mine, a limestone mine, and they've been doing this since 1955. And they go in a mine shaft, literally, there might even be a photo that we can put up, and then they file them again, and they have been doing this for 70 odd years manually. And that's why they can only retire so many people, because there's only so many handwritten letters that can be done each day, and only so much transportation that can be done each time. So it's like, what? So this Elon Musk's going, what the hell are you talking about? So why is that not digitized? And he needs to get people from, low value jobs into high value jobs.
Well, look, there's so many examples of that taking place all around the world. And the thing that I don't understand, and again, look, it was something that Donald Trump says, and again, I sort of take no political sides here, but he said that, there seems to be an element of disruption to his goal of uncovering waste. And to me, I don't understand how anybody could put forward an argument to say, you're not allowed or you shouldn't be investigating our spend to help try and save money. Because to me, that's just a huge red flag. Because why would somebody not want you to investigate spend in the aim to try and save money and look for places where there's an overspend or there's an unnecessary spend, and you've got an entire department that is now just wasting thousands, in fact, millions or billions, he's saying.
But you know what the clock's almost at now? It's $100 billion has been saved now, pretty much, which is twice the size of the UK's defence budget.
Already.
And he's been in 3 weeks or something like that.
And this is the thing that I hate about the majority of people that we've allowed ourselves in a modern society. And again, going back to the point of government where, unfortunately, democracy generally leads people to being on two sides of the fence. You're either right or you're left. And it doesn't matter which side you're on. For me, I'm more in the middle, and I try and find points from both sides where I look at, there are things that the Labour government do that I think is great and I agree with, and the things that on the Conservative side that are great and I agree with. But too many people now are forced into this hard right or left mentality, and it's almost become that if you're even insinuating for a second that you slightly agree with something that the opposing party has said or done, it's like you're out of the club. You're no longer allowed to be
no man's
a
land.
Labour supporter. We don't want you because you've actually said that you agree with something that the other team have said. And it's just this unfortunate mindset now where if you're on the one side, you have got to hard support that one side. And God forbid the other team say something, even if they said, oh, we're going to cure cancer, they'd go, oh, well, what about Parkinson's? It's just ridiculous. They can't do right. And we need to go back to this mindset where, no matter what side of the coin you're on, you can still look at the other side and go, do you know what? Actually, I support that. Even though I don't listen or agree with 90% of the stuff they're doing, this 10% actually I can really get on board with.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to just get an even split. And I think these things amplify even more and the tribalism kicks in because there's been a cost of living crisis. And these things are bred in this sort of environment where, people are struggling, people are finding things difficult. So they push further into their own camps. And when someone says something that's an opposing view, because they're not doing very well, they blame so much more than if, things were going better. And again, it's a problem because of the government. They spend too much money. But then they print too much money, which devalues the currency, which increases the price of the products, which is, what happened during COVID and the inflation, which is definitely far higher than, the print figure. But, it doesn't help.
Well, this is the thing. And again, we're going down a slippery slope. And if we carry on the way we are, the debt's rising. And, if we were to look at any business where the costs exceed the growth income, your business goes down and that's it. You've got no business. You go into liquidation and that's you done. The government is the only business in the entire country that reports a loss every single year and just prints more money. And then when they print more money to pay for the loss that they're making every year, guess who's worse off? The people, because inflation takes place because they're having to print more money to pay for the debt that they keep bringing in, which reduces the value of your cash because there's more of it. So simply put, again, if there's a commodity, diamonds, let's say they're a precious, rare sort of commodity, if all of a sudden millions of them rain down from the heavens,
that'd be nice.
The price of diamonds would go into the floor. They would be worth nothing because they were so readily available. So it's the same with cash, and that's exactly how inflation works. We keep losing money as a country every single year, and so to pay for that loss, we print more cash, which means the more Great British pounds that are available means the value of them is lower. So cost of living then goes up because of inflation. Everybody's cash that they've got stored is now worth less. So when they go to the shops, they find themselves not being able to afford as much as they could. But if they understood that genuinely that comes from the government's overspend and the printing of all this additional cash, they would soon lose their patience and they would soon be looking to someone like an Elon Musk for the UK to say, well, do you know what? Actually, I would want to have someone that's business savvy, that knows how to generate money, not just how to spend it. I need to know how to generate it and how to increase profits as a businessman does. And that's the problem with this country, is that we've got so many people that are running treasuries, that are running the government, that haven't got a clue how business operates. They don't know how to increase their profits. They don't know how to reduce spends. They just keep spending, thinking they can print more, which is just destroying the country, and it's destroying people's living, because all they do is print more cash, and then they just worry about it, push the can down the road and worry about it later.
Well, the thing that blows my mind, and again, echoing the same point, is none of the Labour front bench government have ever had a job. I mean, it's just baffling. Not even a job. They've just worked through the government in, those sorts of governmental roles and done X, Y, and Z. But from when I read, none of them have had a proper 9-to-5 job.
Something new every day, don't you? I didn't even know that. But
it's crackers, and it's to have someone who's, like I say, got a bit of an understanding. And like I say, with Elon Musk, I agree, they need someone in there that cuts it. I can see the other side that, he's going to be ending up probably cutting things by accident, because he's not going to do it on purpose. Maybe he will, but that's not my conviction. But he could cut things that are going to be necessary. But then it's like he said, he'll just put it back. And I would rather have someone say, like Elon Musk, who's the richest man in the world, impossible to bribe, I would argue, really. You can't really bribe someone who's the richest man on the planet, who's cutting costs and regulations. Because if you have someone like, Janet Yellen, who's like, a chair of the Democratic Party, who's on a 200 grand salary and has a net worth of $15 million or something like that, which, is impossible. Like, how's that happening without a backhander or two? I'd rather have someone who's incredibly wealthy and already set up with these companies, because he's unbribable on that sort of, unless you think he's some sort of, again, Dr. Evil, mini-me style person.
It could be. But the way to stop that, and this is why, again, I go back to the point I made earlier, there needs to be teamwork brought back into the government. But this is a thing that genuinely really upsets me, because, you look at the Houses of Parliament and all these Cambridge and privately educated, you've beat me to it, and they're all there bumbling at each other like just mumbling idiots. And it is embarrassing. I've never seen anything like it. It's like a circus, and they're meant to be running the country, and they look like a preschool trying to, finish a class of finger painting or something. It's so elementary, and I've never seen anything like it. And considering they're the ones in charge, it doesn't really give anybody much hope. But my point is that rather than pointing fingers and scolding each other and trying to make each other look bad, if we were to have Elon Musk that is doing that for Doge in America, why not? If I was Donald Trump, or if I was someone like that and I wanted to be a good leader, I would say, well, do you know what? Let's speak to the other party and let's get them to send us a representative for their party that can work with Elon, and they can almost, if you want the transparency, we've got nothing to hide. Our actions prove louder than words. We're here to make a saving. Here's the proof of the saving that we've made. And at that point, it becomes beyond doubt that he's actually done the job that he promised that he'd do. But if you then get an independent verifier to come in from the other party to say, here's my homework, what do you think? Who's unbiased, or potentially even biased towards the other party. And then they were to actually say, do you know what? They have done the job. They've done it transparently. I've gone through it, and they have saved money. And then you've got not only one party who's going, no, we've won, we've done a good thing. You've then got two parties working together who have sort of said, well, do you know what? Look, I'll give him credit where it's due. They have saved 100 billion, and I've looked at it, and to be honest, they've actually done a good job. And unfortunately, with the system that we've got, it is kind of, because it's done on a turn-by-turn basis, I suppose you are at this now impasse where you've got your government or your team, you want to get into the next available slot in the presidential or prime ministerial term. So you're kind of trying to, rather than be the best, there's this game of
beat the other team.
But it is like we've just seen in the last election, it's not that the Labour government won, it's more that the Conservative government lost through their own poor practice and the way that they ran the country for the last couple of decades, near enough. And that is why I think we need to change back to the way it was before, where it's actually each party needs to try and shine and win on their own merit rather than trying to run the other person through the mud, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and part of it comes from, and this is why the cutting exercise could be so important and why some people are getting so uppity about it. But you've got such a big government now. I mean, in America, I think it's 450 odd federal agencies, which is just like agencies, which is like, I think 2 a year since the inception of the United States. And it's like 2 agencies, like not like, like rules or something, like entire agencies for like, what, 2 a year? It's just crazy. So like, they're saying that when people are getting elected a lot of the time, and the reason why people hate Donald Trump is he's one of the only people in recent decades that actually is in charge of what's going on, because there's such bureaucracy behind the scenes, that they don't. Well, I think it was FDR, wasn't it? He was the last one that was probably fully in charge, and look what happened to him. Look what happened to Trump.
Absolutely.
So almost did. So this is the thing, and this is why cutting some of this red tape, which normally only ever happens when, there's a war, and no one wants a war, obviously. So it's like, to be able to cut it responsibly now is a lot better than the alternative.
I mean, you just, like you said, but that's the extremes that it's got to, and you can see it for yourself. People are literally now taking shots at the future president or the now president who was on a campaign, and regardless of what you think of him, even if he did pay off a porn star and tried to hush her up and all that, I mean, not good for a politician.
Not ideal, no.
But at the same time, it doesn't mean he needs shooting through his head just because of some of the things that he's done. And for me, like, obviously, look, we've got psychopaths in this world, and let's not sort of delve into the inner workings of what happened, because they're going to release all of the JFK files. Apparently, he's signed an executive order on. And look, the inner workings of the government are always going to be, mysterious and hard to understand. But what I'd like to see sort of in the UK is just this restoration of hope, where we land ourselves in a position where the government are inspiring people, and they're not so quick to attack the other parties, attack the up-and-coming parties like the Nigel Farage of Reform Party. And they're actually saying, well, do you know what? We can agree with some of what they're saying, and we actually want to take some of their ideas on board. And it only seems to be at the point they feel threatened that actually that attack starts.
And they work together, because they're working together to stop certain elections as
100%,
well.
100%. But it's like the Lib Dems. They're like the middle party that they sit on the fence. They're a bit of a Switzerland, but nobody attacks them really, because they know they can't win. But all of a sudden Nigel's come up and he's received a massive number of the votes, and all of a sudden now he is the number one target by both Conservatives and the Labour, because they feel threatened. Donald Trump's another good example. Again, he speaks about it himself, but before he became president or ran for the actual position in 2016, he was the lovable business. I don't know if he was lovable, but he was the businessman who ran The Apprentice. He was Home Alone. He had a cameo in his hotel.
Yeah, I remember that.
So there was nobody that was really sort of attacking him.
No real animosity.
100%. There was nothing so crazy going on. And now all of a sudden he becomes a threat to the other party, and all of a sudden the stories come out and they try and dig up dirt on him. And I just think it's such a poor way of trying to inspire a country when there's just such negativity going on, rather than actually trying to stand out on merit, rather than just pushing everybody else down.
This is why it'd be nice to see the statistic that is, 20% of Brits between the ages of 18 and 30 aren't, only 20% are proud to be British. And it's like, wouldn't that be just amazing if that switched? Wouldn't it be, only 20 odd years ago, it was 80%.
Are you proud to be British?
I absolutely love being British. and I really do. Like, the royal family, some of them obviously not, but the fact that we've got a royal family, the fact that we've got, a great history, the inventors of the, the parliamentary system and, like
And
rule
tax.
of law, tax, the Industrial Revolution, these things, champions of the World War II and World War One, they're things to be proud of. And, like no country's perfect, nothing is, there's been a lot worse. I mean, look at the bloody Mongol Empire, not an ideal on that one. But, it's about being introspective and looking at it and then taking the good, dispelling the bad, and then moving forward, not looking back.
So where does the future government need to take us? What do you think are some of the action steps? If you were in charge, what would you do? Mr. Prime Minister Barker?
I would start filing pension in mines. No, I wouldn't. I just 100% there needs to be a cut down of the spend. It's far too bloated, far too large. Each employee that works for the government, in reality, if they worked in the private sector, they would be more productive on a lot of jobs, and obviously not all of them, but on a lot of jobs. So it's to try and cut down the amount of people that are employed. I mean, the NHS is the largest employer on the planet. Pretty sure that's right. And, there's like over 2 million employees. And it's like, I'm sure some of those roles can be digitized, and I'm sure I'm going to get hate for that one. But yeah, what about you?
Well, I think we're pretty fucked when people like Andrew Tate are starting to garner support for being the next prime minister.
Yeah,
I think that just goes to show how far we've fallen from grace, that a man like Andrew Tate is getting that notoriety and even elements of support. But, there's blind leading the blind, I think, on that one. For me, what I would do if I was leading the country would be to just address the people's concerns. And look, everybody has this sort of overriding thing that cost of living's going up. So the only way to combat that is by, like you said, reducing spend, but also creating income. So that would be looking to the small businesses and the people that are actually trying to create something for themselves via like building a business, starting a business, and encourage that more, certainly through schools. So I'd certainly look at the schooling system straight away and try and encourage money literacy and understanding taxes, understanding finance, building a business, how to do it. Don't look to two young lads on a podcast. Let's get it into school, and then we'll come in and show the videos at the schools. So I think that, first and foremost, I'd make sure that we're teaching financial literacy from a young age, and we're not discouraging people from starting a business, because at the minute it's very geared towards going into employment, and it just kills your dreams. So that's absolutely number one. The next huge one, again, is just reintroducing a level of deterrent for the crimes that people are committing on a day-to-day basis in this country. And you only have to look around at some of the things that are happening, occurring: robberies, broad daylight, theft, stabbings, crimes, drugs, everything that's just taken over the country. And we've pretty much just given everybody a pass. It seems that the decent people that are the ones getting locked up for crimes these days, that, fair enough, if you have committed a crime and you're the ones you're caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you need to be punished. But there are people out there doing far worse things like gang culture, stabbings, murders, dangerous, reckless driving, running people over, bloody terrorism and all this sort of thing. And they're getting a slap on the wrist, and they're known perpetrators of crime, and nothing's happening. Whereas you look at countries like Dubai, the UAE, and look, they're not perfect. I'm not saying they are, but you hear some horror stories about there where, look, and it's not great, but they've taken people into prisons, given them a 20-year sentence because they've been found with a CBD vape pen, was a big one that stood out in the news, and 20 years in jail. And those jails aren't getting TVs, 3 meals a day, plenty of time to use the gym and sort of facilities, having phones. Bloody, we only have to look at HMP Wandsworth, what's going on over there.
Christ,
so they're having a field day. It's like party time, So again, where's the deterrence and not commit crimes? Whereas if you're in the UAE, you commit a crime, you are in jail for 20 years and it's not fun. So the best thing to do is not commit the crime. So again, for me, I just listen to the people. They're two of the biggest things that I'd like to change, and I think the government should. I'll be getting in touch. In fact, we've got a contact in the government, haven't we? So
yeah, we won't say any more. Otherwise, we might be getting that shot that Donald Trump had.
But yeah, no, absolutely not. If you don't hear from us,
yeah, you know what happened.
we've obviously said too much. But no, that's what I'd like to see. And you know, the main thing that I'd like to see is this restoration of pride in the country, this restoration of inspiration, where we've got people now that are inspired to find success and inspired to start. And obviously that's the reason why we've done this podcast. And, you know, our goal is simple. If we can motivate or inspire a handful of people, even just one person, which I'll be honest, we've already had, you know, somebody reach out to us and mention that we have changed their lives and they've started to find success and benefited already. So for me, I'm eternally grateful to have this platform to be able to share our insights with people and know that we're making a difference. And if everybody shared that mindset, then we'd be in a better place.
Yeah, I think switching that 20% of people being proud to be British or even just proud to live here, I bet that's not even too dissimilar. If that flipped and it was 70% of people were proud to be, it's like having your own home, isn't it? If you weren't proud of living in your own house, it's going to be a shithole. But like, if you're proud of the house you live in, you want it to be nice. You want to have your glasses neatly. You want to like tidy the surface. You want to tidy these things. People are coming around. You're like, oh God, you know, make sure I sweep it up or get the leaves out. And these things. So the country's only exactly the same. You know, if you walk down the street and you saw litter and you're proud of your country, you go, oh, you know what? I'll pick it up and put it in the bin. But if you don't give a shit, you're going to probably throw an add to the pile.
100%. Where's your pride at?
Where's the pride?
Bring it back. I think it's important. Look, all we're trying to say is that, you know, until people start taking action, nothing's going to get better. We can all sit back, moan and complain about the situation around us. But until we become the change in our environment, nothing is going to happen. So take something from this video. Have some pride in yourself, have some pride in your country and your surroundings, make a difference, and let us know what you think about the current state of Britain in the comments below. Remember to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.